Hello everybody, CritCrab here with another story, this one about a DM that pitched his game online as a women-only safe experience, but the campaign was exactly the opposite. Anybody who regularly watches my videos would know that I don't normally ask for people to stick around until the end of the video, but after the story, OP comes out with the receipts as well as some other important content. Anyways, trigger warning, sexual assault. Roll post. We are gathered here today to regale you of a story of cowardice, sexual assault, gaslighting, victim blaming, and betrayal. Several weeks ago, an all-female group of D&D players interviewed and was assembled for running a module. At no point prior to the interview did the DM reveal that they were male, which came as a surprise to us given the tone of the LFG listing. During our interviews and again in our session 0 together, it was explicitly outlined that this group was a safe space for women players to participate in D&D without having to deal with the harrowing sexism or unrelated issues in our escapism fantasy RPG. We as a group have all had to deal with these issues in real life, and we're excited to be in a campaign where the DM was supposedly going to remove those elements from any pre-written content and make sure our experiences were positive in that aspect. The campaign was going to be streamed on Twitch, and we were pretty pumped for this. Fast forward to the current times. Our group of adventurers were traveling to a new city and had to stop by a tavern on the way. As our PCs entered, we discovered a group of haughty, male, noble NPCs had bought out all of the rooms and all of the drinks the moment we asked about getting them. We wanted to leave, but we were informed that we and our horses would take a level of exhaustion and it would be very bad to do so. We attempt again to get the rooms in the tavern, and the NPCs are throwing sexist comments at our PCs and call us wet holes to make implications that they'd like to take us to their rooms and possibly rape us, while also provoking us by calling our half-orc mascot, who is played by a minor, racist slurs. There are POC in our group as well. Not wanting to take this lying down, we retorted by having one person use prestidigitation to put some mud on the face of the NPC who called us wet holes for being a jerk. This is where things managed to get worse. Without any saving throws or any way to get out of this situation, our characters get grappled and pinned by the NPCs, who turn out to be massively higher level than us, and end up one-shotting several in the party later. Being in a situation where we are physically pinned by someone who already deemed you a sex object is very triggering for a lot of us. Our mindset was immediately fight or flight on a level not usual for D&D, and many of us were still on edge because this scenario hit too close to real-life events we have experienced. We realize we can't win, but keep on fighting and trying to get away, even going so far as to try and find a way to TPK one another so we can get out of the situation, as having our PCs pinned with the prior indication that they might be raped is not something any of us were happy about. He offers to let our PCs leave if we personally strip our KO'd companions naked and leave our belongings behind. We announced that we were not comfortable with this situation and it was clear we were not having fun. Instead of apologizing for putting us in that instance, the DM attempted to backtrack after admitting he goaded us into confrontation by blaming us for starting the fight by using prestidigitation, instead of turning around and leaving and suffering the consequences he said we would have. Apparently, we were supposed to let NPCs objectify and threaten us because that's a fun thing to do. This was not received with open arms, and the DM did not seem to understand why, and then immediately skipped to a scenario where our PCs were traveling on the road and get ejaculated on by a field of jizzing mushrooms while us players sat there on the Twitch stream in disbelief this was actually happening. Tone deaf much? But wait, there's more. 6 of us players decide we didn't need to put up with this behavior in D&D. This session egregiously violated the core principle of why this group was assembled in the first place. We were very polite in composing a Dear John letter stating that we were not comfortable continuing the campaign with him after these events. The DM doesn't respond to our letter and instead, several days after the letter was posted to our Discord, sends one of the female admins to basically ask us why we are being so offended over the situation and to tell us D&D was never a safe space, and try and chalk up our response as an overreaction to losing an encounter. This admin has absolutely no involvement or relation to us whatsoever and attempts to use the fact that they were in the US Navy to explain why we're sensitive and need to get over it, and blames us for picking the fight in the first place. The DM, who is the only person who the letter was addressed to, has never responded to the group. This whole situation was utter garbage, and I hope no one ever gets baited in by this DM like we were. It was really cruel and shitty, and the complete lack of accountability and responsibility by the DM is absolutely disgusting. End post. But it doesn't stop here. OP also provided the receipts. Roll receipts. Players wanted. I'd like to create a game with an all-female cast of players. I've heard from many female players over the years who have had less than enjoyable experiences at the gaming table. I'm seeking to offer a playing environment that will be safe and comfortable, playing with other nerdettes who enjoy and love the game as much as you. Bring your aggression to smash some kobolds and save the good people of Faerun as we make the best all-female adventuring party. If you think this is for you, please fill out the player application. Our initial breakup letter. Hey DM, we all have been doing a lot of thinking after the last session, and we think it's best we call it quits. The campaign has been fun, and we appreciate that you addressed the situation with us afterwards. It touched on some issues that we are collectively uncomfortable with in a game and feel that it's something that will stay in the back of our minds as we progress. We want you to know that there are no hard feelings on our end and hope it's the same for you. It was an encounter that made us feel powerless and completely objectified, which are things we experience daily. We understand that it was meant to bait us into a fight, but it was done in a way that took control from us and placed everyone into a fight-or-flight instinct. This isn't to place blame on you, just to explain that we reacted as best as we could because, in some form or another, we've all been in this kind of predicament in real life. D&D is meant to be an escape, but that encounter was unfortunately realistic. We wish you all the best and hope we all can continue being friends. Random person we've never spoken to shows up. Rando, your feelings are valid, though it's worth mentioning I've been KO'd by guards many times for trying to outsmart them as a bard. We've had a few players die in our game for running in recklessly. Sorry to hear y'all aren't going to join us in hell. It's been fun watching you. Sorcerer, I understand that there are situations where characters get in over their heads, and there are fights that the characters are not ready for. However, this encounter involved calling our characters nothing more than holes to be used and racist comments to a group of all girls, where the entire purpose was to not have to deal with this situation. There was no player agency, no saving throws to start the combat. I know it made me feel uncomfortable, and I do not want to feel that way in a game meant for fun. Warlock, I don't speak for everyone else, but for me, I just need space and time to separate myself from something that has brought up some wounds. I thought I would be able to move on from that feeling, but it's just been simmering in my brain and turning my stomach all week. At this point, I just can't play D&D with a reminder of that right now. I imagine in time I will be in a place where the wound will be healed enough to play with blank again, but right now I'm stuck with memories of real life incidents. Wizard. The inception of this group, from my understanding, was to create a space where women wouldn't have to contend with the toxic, often sexist encounters found in the TTRPG world. That is what we signed up for. To be baited into a situation where we either have to accept racist and sexist comments being made towards our characters, or be penalized for it, is not something I believe we were looking for in our D&D experience. The suggestion that we could either allow our characters to be sexually exploited by several NPCs throwing out commentary about betting our characters involuntarily or otherwise goes against the core tenets that this very group was established upon. It was never about the combat. Rando replied, I watched it twice. Can you point to me where the racist comment was? Sorcerer, when the party half-orc was left alone and was told that he was being called an animal comes to mind off the top of my head. Racist to orcs? Not a comment as in you all are less than. Sorcerer, I don't need to provide proof and win a debate. What happened happened, and I will do what I need to make myself feel comfortable. Rando, you do you. All feelings are valid. Then, the next day, completely unprompted, Rando replied, you all insisted on fighting. You didn't need to rest. You just wanted to occupy that space. The rooms were paid for, and you all objectively tried to steal the rooms. Feels like there is more to this. Sorcerer, that's because there is. I don't care we lost a fight. I care how we were treated as less than nothing, threatened with assault. If you're unable to see that, I'm sorry. Wizard, I understand and respect your continued decision to defend the behaviors that led players to leave a campaign, but what I don't quite understand is who you are in this context and why isn't the DM responding? Thank you for the condolences. I await response from the party we initially addressed. Rando, you assaulted them, the imaginary characters in an imaginary world. I'm responding because we thought it was best if a woman heard your concerns. He has heard your concerns. I am here. I am listening. Warlock, Jesus Christ. Wizard, let me make this abundantly clear, since the previous iterations of this message do not seem to have been properly understood. This is not about the combat. This was never about the combat. This is not about us losing an encounter. This is not about rooms or gold or what have you. This is about a group of women D&D players who were gathered together specifically with the design of playing in a safe environment where we wouldn't have to deal with elements of sexual assault, harassment, or the like. And we found ourselves goaded into a situation where that was put on the table. It never belonged at the table in the first place. Warlock, next time I'm towered over by a man making sexually aggressive comments, I'll make sure not to prestidigitate mud on him because that is assault apparently. Guess I learned my lesson. We weren't murder hoboing. Nothing we did has ever been considered aggressive in any D&D campaign I have ever played, so get out with that victim-blaming mentality. I was never going to say anything on the stream about the situation, even when we were all dying. I was going to bring up the topic in private after stream. It wasn't until we got to the leave your clothes behind moment that I fully snapped to. And I understand the idea of not having that experience so you don't know their optics. But playing in a game that was presented as a safe space without this supposed bullshit, I thought there was going to be a little more self-awareness. I'm totally fine having my ass handed to me in encounters meant to teach the party to run. It's happened dozens of times. I'm not fine with the aggressive sexual harassment leading to a physical pin with no save leading to a give us your KO'd friend's clothes. I play D&D to escape that exact bullshit. I don't want it in my game. I thought it was understood. Paladin 1. Exactly. I was led to believe this campaign was specifically designed to avoid dealer's choice sexual harassment, and I'm not about to be okay with the idea of you choose to fight them so you deserve what you get. Warlock. I don't like the way he has made me feel. I'm annoyed I have to defend my inherent emotional reaction to something that brings up real traumatic memories. I'm irritated I have to defend the decision I made for my own mental health. And I'm flabbergasted that you, ma'am, are trying to spin it in a way that we're just pissy over losing an encounter. Rando. That is Dungeons & Dragons. It's not a safe space. People will die. There will be murder, guts, cursing, and fights. This particular campaign, No Room at the Inn, is written this way. Worse even, it is often yelled about on forums. The DM actually cleaned up the encounter for your group. Yes, throwing mud on someone is assault. The party also did their fair share of stabbing. This is not mentioning the initial reaction to murder everyone when one human confronted you. I've seen people arrested for throwing a honey packet at a human. I served in the US Navy. I have experienced many situations. I am crushingly aware of the reality women face. Games like this are a great outlet for reimagining better situations. I'm not victim blaming. I apologize if I'm projecting that. I am listening to your concerns and attempting to help you understand the reality of the situation. You initiated a confrontation when you could have walked away. The DM let you walk away with your clothing and your belongings and alive. Most don't make it out so lucky. I am in no way trying to invalidate your feelings. Your feelings are 100% valid. Only you can know what's best for you. I cannot control how you feel or tell you how to feel. You are encouraged to do what's best for you. I welcome all participants to speak freely. Wizard, I cannot state this any more clearly. Go fuck yourselves, all of you, every single one of you. Go fuck yourselves and take your toxic culture with you. Sorcerer, Wizard, you're my hero. I agree. If you really can't recognize what the issue is, I feel very sorry for you. Warlock, violence was never the issue, random lady. Sorcerer, if this isn't a safe space, it should not have been advertised as one. Warlock, DM advertised himself as a safe place for women because he claimed he knew how hard it was to find non-creepos to play with. I've played D&D for many years. This has been my worst encounter, so don't come on to this conversation with, That's how Dungeons and Dragons is played. If you cannot DM without using aggressive sexual harassment, racism, homophobia, and xenophobia, then you are a shitty storyteller. We thought this encounter would be a reimagining of a better situation, i.e., we get to beat the shit out of sexual assaulters. Paladin 1 replied, you are just wrong, that encounter is not written into Descent into Avernus. Warlock, but no, it turned into an encounter nearly we all have lived. Harassment and then physically pinned once we tried to defend ourselves. That is a fucked up place to be mentally put back into again. There were dozens of different ways to bait us. It's sketchy as fuck that aggressive sexual harassment was the first choice. Paladin 1. The reality of the situation is that we do not have to put up with anything we do not feel like putting up with, and it's frankly none of your concern or business. Rando. I understand what the issue is. You were put in a situation that made you feel uncomfortable. This was not advertised as a safe space. It was. To what I understand, you did not want to speak up while it was happening. That's also understandable. I hear you, DM hears you. I am not trying to belittle you. I'm not trying to make your feelings seem as an overreaction. Again, your feelings are valid. If you're not comfortable in this environment, you are welcome to leave the server. If any of you would like to continue the campaign or join another, you are welcome to say so or contact DM via DM. I apologize that you faced this and hope that we can come to an accord. Paladin 1, don't tell us what it was and wasn't advertised as when you weren't in our conversations. We're not including this entire server when we're talking about our campaign. Warlock, I was fine waiting until I mentally recovered to join a game in the future, but you come in here acting like an attack dog in a faux understanding, validating persona to either guilt us or antagonize us into all quitting the server. So I mean, congrats on it working, I guess? He said in interviews that this was going to be a safe place for women to not deal with the bullshit. He said it on the first interviews. If you're into the torture porn campaigns, hey, that's great, but that's not something this campaign was agreed on. Rando, he did say it would be safe from creeps, such as players whom push themselves on other players, i.e., having to work with players whom tried to merge your characters more than you would like via backstory, story interaction, or continually having to work with men that want to have kids with your character. That's why there was an initial interview. I think that's what the takeaway was that meant a safe place. It may be a misunderstanding or miscommunication. I apologize. Warlock. Oh, terribly sorry. I didn't know that creeps were just players and the GM was allowed free reign to be creepy. My mistake. Rando. At no point did I say the GM is free to be creepy. At no point did DM say the GM is given free reign to be creepy. Unfortunately, we can't read each other's minds. Again, I apologize. Warlock. He made a specific note to mention in the interview the creepiness of sexual harassment. We all agreed it's creepy. Is he really so short-sighted or unaware that he would think that we would be okay with it? Paladin 1. So should we be expecting a response from DM, or are you his representative? Rando. He's listening and taking it in. What would you like him to say? Warlock. Listen, lady, I hope you break the chains of the misogynistic manipulation that this community or society has put on you that has you defending torture porn D&D ideologies, and for you to shake this burning desire to defend a person who is fully capable to defend himself, but doesn't. You made this a bigger deal than it was. We were all still fine with DM and just didn't want to play for the time being, and him using you as a woman mouthpiece / shield is deplorable. I hope you find the validation and attention you are looking for in someone who won't exploit you as an attack dog. Paladin 1. What she said. Wizard. The lack of response from the only person who had any dealings in the matter after allowing what was initially a polite rescission of our participation is deafening. I find this whole ordeal gutlessly yellow and beneath my contempt. Best of wishes in your future endeavors. And lastly, Rando. I chose to offer my services, and he agreed. I am here of my own volition. I believe what was said is doing a lot of thinking after the last session, and we think it's best to call it quits. Thus, hearing why you would like to call it quits, I offer you to not. Well, you are more than welcome to take a break. That was not what was said. I'm here for clarity. I'm sorry you felt the need to use force in your encounter as you have learned from the patriarchy. I am sorry you believe condescending and calling me a dog is acceptable when I am here in peace. I ask again, for the third time, what would you like DM to say? Then we all quit the server. End receipts. For one, to me at least, I personally think he opened the game with the express intent of making the game offensive and shocking to women who wanted a nice, fun experience. That could explain why he put it up on Twitch too. Maybe he wanted to record the women being angry at him and then edit it as necessary so he can make a video titled something along the lines of epically owning SJW women by sexually assaulting them in D&D epic style with Facts and Logic Pro. Okay, but jokes aside, personally, I also have a hunch that Rando was probably DM's Discord alt, but again, that's just me. But something hilarious about this is that everywhere this story is posted, without fail, there's this one dude running around in damage control mode trying to get anything negative about the DM taken down, reporting other people's comments, and commenting in his defense all over the place. Get this. This guy claims that he was watching the stream when it happened and that everybody in the game was lying about it. Check this out. Actually, this seems to be a lie. I was in the stream when this situation went down, and it was a written encounter by Wizards of the Coast where they're put in a hard-to-beat, if not impossible, encounter with 6 nobles, actually assassins, that are too high for players of their level. They were always going to be stripped to their skimmies and sent out. You heard it here, folks. He genuinely believes that there's a written Wizards of the Coast module where 6 overpowered nobles strip the characters naked and throw them out. Now, I don't remember that part of Death House, but I guess my memory is failing me. It gets even worse though. Just in case there was any doubt if this was sexually charged or not, somebody else who was there when the stream happened jumped in with some real quotes from the stream. Some quotes. You have been thrown to the ground. One of the men here looks distinctly different. He does not look as young as he did a moment ago, and now there is a very sharp bladed dagger to your throat. Your face and chest are now pushed to the table, almost like a police takedown. There is now a dagger to the side of your neck. To the other players. You are also being held with a dagger to your necks. The judge is on top of you with another dagger, with the pointy edge to your neck. Now, let's go back over the timeline. Bad guys sexually degrade the players verbally, something that was not supposed to happen. Then, the player characters sling some mud in their face, because they're being misogynistic douchebags. Then, the bad guys bend the women over a table, push knives to their throats, and tell them to strip. This is also a game that promised to be a safe space for women who were deliberately avoiding this kind of contact. But no, of course, nothing sexual about that, not at all. And dumbest of all, absolutely, pitifully, stupidest of all, he genuinely thinks people are stupid enough to take him at his word when he says that this is all part of an official Wizards of the Coast module. Descent into Avernus, no less. But get this, the DM's White Knight returns. In a D&D game, have you never been held at crossbow point, knife point, sword point? Generally, this DM runs the you can certainly try approach. They had agency, could have left when there was a bunch of asshats harassing them. Instead, they decided to provoke and assault themselves. They had supreme confidence that these guys were weaker and it was not true. They didn't even try to investigate the situation. Now, I know what any reasonable person would be thinking to themselves right now. But wait, isn't this entirely different than simply being detained or held hostage? Well, I assure you, you're wrong because he came back with another banger response. You keep throwing sexual assault around, but no one was. One was certainly grappled, but that's a mechanic, and held at knife point because assassins have, you guessed it, daggers. That was not the point of the comment. No one was sexualizing the violence, and I find it disconcerting that you are doing so. There was a limit, and it was on Twitch, so it would be pretty stupid to use sexual violence. They were told to strip and leave, as per the module. It isn't sexual violence, it is humiliating though, and would have happened to an all-male party too, though it wouldn't get as much attention. Yes, the violence was sexualized, and no, this would not have happened in an all-male party, because the DM made absolute sure that only women were in the game. Anyways, this story kinda pissed me off, but what makes it so much worse is seeing the women in question being blamed and called liars in their comment sections and in their Discord server. Leaving negative comments and saying mean things about someone on the internet seems small, but it can have a big impact on someone's mental health. So to see someone calling them out after they have done absolutely nothing wrong really tips me over the edge. they deserve an apology from the DM directly, not a group of people who may or may not just be him running around in damage control mode. But what is really ironic is that I very likely would not have even found out about this story if this guy didn't report it and everyone who was downvoting him. Because me and a friend moderate my server, all that really did was make it more visible. Anyways, at this point, I'm completely checked out. I'm not going to ask for likes and subs on this video, but what I will say is that if you have any RPG horror stories, or good stories, glory stories, do not hesitate to jump on over to r/CritCrab on Reddit. I don't upload every story I read on there, but I love scrolling through and reading all of your stories. Anyways, until next time.